The Amnesty International Sierra Leone, a few days ago, officially launched its annual report on the state of the world's human rights. The 2025 edition of the report critically assessed national, regional, and global development across a wide range of human rights perspectives, identifies world trends related to violations in armed conflicts, repression of dissent, discrimination, economic and climate injustice, and the misuse of technology to infringe on human rights. The report also stated that while Africa's armed conflicts cause relentless civilian suffering, including increasing level of sexual and gender-based violence and death on a massive scale, some critics believe international and regional responses remained woefully inadequate, with civilians feeling forgotten. In Sierra Leone, the report stated that gender-based violence and other human rights violation impacts on women and girls through their lives, from childhood to adults and beyond. However, remains a major barrier to women's empowerment and societal progress. So this morning, to delve deeper into, of course, the report, among other things, we have in the studios Alphonsus Gbanie, who is the Executive Secretary for Human Rights Defenders Network, and Victor Idrissa Lansana, who is, of course, the Chairman for the Human Rights Commission. Also on Zoom, we are expected to be joined by Solomon Sugbandi, who is the Director of Amnesty International Sierra Leone. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you in our studios this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Sugbandi, are you there? Sugbandi, are you there on Zoom? Okay, well, as we wait on Sugbandi, who is coming from Amnesty International, it would have been nice to start off with him because, of course, the report is published by them. But nonetheless, at this moment, I'll start off with Alphonsus. You were there yesterday at the event. You were there at the event when you were there on the 8th when a lot was said about human rights violations, not just in Sierra Leone, but on a global scale. Help us understand, what do you think is the current state of human rights in Sierra Leone as a rights-based activist?
Well, according the report highlighted a series of thematic areas of concern ranging from women's and girls' rights to enforced disappearances, excessive use of force by the Sierra Leone police, discrimination, the issue of rights to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. These are some of the things are common, particularly on the issue of excessive use of force by the security sector, particularly the Sierra Leone police, freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. That has been very common. And the issue of women's and girls' rights, particularly related to FGM. What is more alarming now, it is the incidences of cases people are now reporting related to death of children during circumcision. That to us is a little bit alarming, and it's a cause for concern, probably which the government needs to look into. Although otherwise, other than that, on the basis of politics, many times even politicians use female circumcision as a way of gaining power or getting votes from community members. And so, based on the report, those are critical areas that were highlighted in the report. The other things that also emanate in the report were on the issue related to enforced disappearances and the issue of loitering. And I think, to me, this one is very interesting because police are using this on the pretext of loitering to muscle, particularly vulnerable groups. And when I refer to vulnerable groups, the word is derogatory, but some young girls that are getting their living at night, they use the loitering law to arrest and detain them. I think that is really unfortunate, and we have received several complaints, and we also have some of our colleagues that are also working on those areas, that we believe police have a lot of things to do other than concentrating on arresting these young girls just for loitering, in the name of loitering. And so that was why even the ECOWAS courts handed down a decision against the Sierra Leone government that the action using the loitering law to arrest and detain or charge young girls is in itself a violation.
Alphonsus, will you agree with the aspect of the report saying that efforts or strides being put in place to ensure that the rights of citizens are guaranteed continues to be woefully inadequate? Will you agree to that?
Well, it depends from the, you see, human rights is so broad. If you consider, if you tend to look at the civil and political rights, which is the first generation of rights, you will see some part of it being addressed. We have conducted free and fair elections. We have handed over power. It's just the aspect of inclusion and participation. But when you look at economic and social rights, you cannot compare. Nothing has been done so much. Even on the issue of health, when we talk about health, the government will always tell you that they are trying to do what we refer to as progressive realization for people to enjoy their rights to health because of the money. So if you tend to segment the human rights response as a nation, then I think the report stands, the report presented a case.
Victor, this report touches on one critical aspect, which I suppose the Commission has to date holds an opposing view to same, which is the aspect of forced disappearance. Help us understand what constitutes forced disappearance and how best does it fit in the asylum institution, taking into account the instances we've had over time.
Yes, well, thank you very much for having the Human Rights Commission to talk to people on this report. For us, we welcome efforts of this nature geared towards promoting and protecting human rights of all in Sierra Leone. And we believe that the Commission alone cannot, squarely do this work, and that is why we normally collaborate with civil society organizations like Amnesty International and the one that Mr. Alphonsus Gbanie represents. You know, Mr. Gbanie has already laid the foundation in terms of looking at, the different areas that the report actually captures, and one of which is what you have just highlighted: enforced disappearance. The issue of enforced disappearance is a very strong human rights issue, and it is quite technical. And so our position is that the instance that has been cited in this report that is equated to enforced disappearance does not actually stand the human rights and legal test. When you say enforced disappearance, they are referring to a certain individual they say was around somewhere in Guinea, and then he was arrested in respect of the failed coup in 2023, and then later he was 3 months later, I think he was put on bail according to the report. So for us, that does not actually amount to enforced disappearance. Enforced disappearance, in its simplest meaning or form, means that state actors or persons acting on behalf of the state would arrest and detain individual or individuals and then get them disappear without concealing the location of that individual. That is, basically the meaning of enforced disappearance. So, but the instance that they have cited in this report, does not actually, fit well within that definition. And this was an investigation around the field coup. We were all here. We knew, what happened, and we knew the magnanimity, the extent at which we saw those who wanted to disrupt governance and take us back 50 years downwards, how it actually, occurred. But that being said, that is not to say that the report is not good. It's a good work. I have gone through the aspect of Sierra Leone, and many of the instances raised or human rights issues raised are really of concern to the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone, and we have been advocating around these issues for a very long time and continue to do the same. And like you said in your intro, this is a report that is of a global nature. The human rights violations and human rights abuses, are not just limited to Sierra Leone. We have, on a very large scale, human rights violations and abuses across the world. We've seen what is happening in Gaza. We've seen what is happening in Ukraine, in Yemen, in several other parts of the world. So it's a wake-up call to world actors to understand that the shrinking aspect of human rights, the enjoyment of human rights, is something all of us must actually put shoulders to be able to address. For us here in Sierra Leone, the Human Rights Commission is taking the lead, and we encourage others to come on board. And we have always said to governments, we have always asked government to be responsive to its obligations, because government as a state, or government representing the state of Sierra Leone, has basically two forms of obligations. There's international obligation, and then there is national obligation. International obligation, government has the obligation to protect human rights, to respect human rights, to fulfill human rights, and to promote human rights. So anything done, that affects those obligations, we call them human rights violations. And then there is the national obligation that the government has. So if you look at Section 5 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, subsection 2, paragraph B, it is very clear that it says the welfare of the citizens of Sierra Leone, the security and welfare of the citizens of Sierra Leone lie on the shoulders of government. It is the business of government to make sure that it protects the welfare of its citizens, it promotes the welfare of its citizens, and it protects the security of its citizens. And so, where we have situations that governments, have not been able to exclusively or entirely, address the welfare of our citizens, then it's a concern for us. And that is why we as a commission, we have now really turned our attention so much on the second generation of rights, the economic, social, and cultural rights, because these are actually the rights that can give you empowerment and be able to fend for yourself, give yourself prestige, and fend for your family. Like Mr. Alphonsus said, we have actually made so much strides in terms of the first generation of rights, the civil and political rights. He rightly referred to the fact that, we have been able to hold elections, peaceful elections, transparent elections, transfer power from one political party to the other. We have been able to get citizens to participate in governance. Now there's the new media. Anybody can hold government accountable through his phone. AYV and other media outlets, are creating platforms for Sierra Leoneans to participate in governance. We have plethora of media houses today. The newspapers, are accountable. So all of these are platforms. They are all, enabling environment that have been created to make sure that citizens actually participate in governance. But then the issue of, economic and cultural rights, we agree that by Section 14 of our Constitution, it's actually something that we refer to as a progressive realization, which actually means that government can pour money into making sure that those rights are enjoyed, on a progressive basis. It is quite different from when you look at Chapter 3 of the Constitution, which tells or which gives powers to a citizen to take government to court when, I mean, such a right is violated. But this one, you know, it is non-justiciable. That is what Section 40 says. But then we've seen over the years also that even though we are still, we still want more, we believe that the country, since independence, has not been able to make so much gains in terms of those economic and social rights. But then we've seen also over the time, you know, quality education in terms of right to education has been enhanced. It's ongoing. There are several challenges, but then the initiative itself has been able to save, has been able to bring a lot of children to school. You know, retention, admission and retention has actually increased. And we've seen efforts at the right to health. Of course, I mean, there is much more to be done. Maternal mortality has been reduced from the statistics we are seeing. But then we believe as the Commission that much more deliberate effort has to be taken to make sure, you know, that we are able to at least provide those basic necessities, those basic, if you go to hospitals, I mean, you will see in some hospitals, they don't have up-to-date equipment to be able to do surgeries. And so that is why we see a lot of Sierra Leoneans going to India, going to sometimes even over our neighbors, Ghana, you know, to seek alternative medical care. So much more really, you know, has to be done to make sure that we improve on our economic, social, and cultural rights.
I was just looking at one aspect that Alphonsus touches on, which speaks to freedom of expression and assembly. It's become very rare in Sierra Leone. But again, I wanted to cite Thomas Dixon's situation and also Pali Babadi's situation. Someone in time, Pali was in our studio, made some statements, expressed his view as to the office of the Inspector General of Police, and not too long after, he went into hiding as a result of what the rumors that were passed around, that he was being threatened by the IG, that if he comes out, he will be apprehended and forcefully detained. It's becoming extremely rare. Most times people are not afraid to even say things. Lansana, where will you classify same, more so in terms of enforced disappearance?
Samuel, it's not entirely true to say people do not have the opportunity to say their minds or to express their views on governance. It's not true, because we follow social media. We have several bloggers these days. We have individuals who will say things, who write things, you know, articles all over. All of these are a means of freedom of expression. And we also have to understand that every right goes with responsibility. So your right to freedom of expression, which is a constitutional right, by the way, has also obligations. Okay, you have responsibilities in making sure that you don't make reckless statements, for instance, or you don't make statements that will threaten peace or the security of the state, or statements that would, you know, get people, that will incite violence, that will incite ethnicity, ethnic bigotry, as the case may be. So all of these are responsibilities that when we make statements, when we try to get ourselves involved in governance, we have to be mindful of them. At some point, I followed Baba, the guy you are referring to, his situation. That this was after what he said on AYV show. I did not actually follow that aspect, but it was after the reactions that came in quite later. I remember that Sludge had a delegation that they went to see the Inspector General of Police. I think it was said that, oh, he did not threaten, or he did not say he was going to arrest, as the case may be. But then I believe that every individual should be given the opportunity, as the Constitution actually intended it to be able to make statements or I mean, hold an opinion or view on a subject matter. But however, when you now go to when your views on an individual, be it a private citizen like Samuel citizen here, or the IG, and you begin to make disparaging statements against an individual in a bid to put his reputation, to the gutters, then it becomes really very, very serious, and it's something that all citizens must be able to understand that they have a responsibility to. I listened when Mr. Abated was, I think, put on bail, and then he came to AYV. Sure. That was particular program, I listened to it, or I think I stumbled on the clip on TikTok, where he said to say the IG is a stupid man. I mean, there were several strong statements that he made against this person, against the IG's person as an individual. Not necessarily even as a state authority, but as an individual. To say, his degree, he questioned his degree, he questioned his integrity, he questioned his intellect. If you can put up that interview, you will see those were not guided statements. I would say they were not guided statements. There were several ways in which I would agree. I mean, you know, AYV 98.1, several other media houses, they know how strongly I have been in terms of holding the IG, the police generally accountable. But you have to be guided in what you say, because these people also, they are parents. Of course, we know they are public officers, but just being public officers actually does not mean that citizens should just throw whatever tantrums at you because you are someone working for AYV, you are regulating a program or moderating a program. Therefore, if a listener doesn't agree with the manner of questions that you ask, he should come and begin to throw tantrums at you, in a bid to sour your reputation, your integrity, as the case may be. So I agree, and we have always advocated, I as an individual also have always advocated that these constitutional provisions must be respected by citizens and by state actors. That is why I said the international obligation is to respect, is to protect human rights and to fulfill human rights. So the state has the obligation. And even under our constitution, the state has the obligation. But then at the same time, if you look at section 13 of our constitution, it's also a constitutional obligation, or duty, that is bestowed on a citizen. That section 13 says that every citizen must be responsible. We must be patriotic, we must be nationalistic, we must make sure that we participate in governance, we must make sure that we render assistance to state authorities, to the police, for instance, in making sure that there is law and order in our communities. So it's also put duties or obligations on the citizen, so that at the end of the day we have a country where everybody respects human rights, where everybody comes up to be alive with duties and obligations. We all want our rights. That is why as a commission we make sure that we get people to understand their rights and how they can actually chase their rights. We tell you about where the laws are and how you can go about making sure that you have your right. But at the same time, we remind citizens of Chapter 13 of the Constitution, which talks about the duties of a citizen, and it's very important that we all understand we must be able to respect that. Just before you go to the next question, on the issue of duties. So, for instance, now EDSA, we have been crying over how EDSA has been reckless. I agree with that, but also we know, for instance, that there are thousands of Sierra Leoneans who are enjoying electricity by illegal connections. We all know that. But those people will still come to the media. They will still go to social media when there is a blackout or something. There is no electricity supply in their areas. Yet they don't want to pay for it. So how do we want our country to actually develop? So you could see that the situation is so dire. On one hand, there is the D2 who is actually, better executing his mandate, his role in his office. And then there is the citizen who also is not helping out at all by conduct, by what we do. So that is why the situation has become really, really dire. And that is why we are having a serious mistrust, between the governed and the governors.
Sierra Leone seems to have made impressive progress in terms of laws and policies that have been enacted over time. The Prohibition of Child Marriage Acts, updates of the Criminal Procedure Acts, among other things. Alphonsus, let's look at the aspects of respect for the rule of law. Where do you think we sit at this particular moment?
We're on a balance. If the respect for the rule of law could be detached from political interference, I think Sierra Leone, people will obey the law and people will be respecters of the law. Our biggest threats and challenge is that those that are in position of trust are the very ones that are breaching the law with impunity. If you go, take for instance on the issue of lands, there are people who own their property because some of these guys are occupying position of trust within the states. Do we go and grab somebody else's land? The matter will be taken to court, judgment will be passed. That matter will, the execution of that order will never take place because these people are in position of trust. And when Madabio started his campaign and even running his government, that is why some of us supported him. I personally, because I view his comments as one of the critical elements in transforming this country. And there were just three. That is going to make sure that he fights corruption, lawlessness, and indiscipline. These are the three key words. But to me personally, I felt betrayed by the president. To be candid enough, I have high respect for him in making sure that he has passed progressive laws, which I appreciate. But to address the issue of lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption, I think he has done little towards that. I think he needs to do something before he ends his term to make sure that his statement becomes a reality, or else he will do good things. But for the mere fact that he could not address what he presented to us as his flagship program campaign, whether you are successful on free education, you can have free education, but if there is lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption, you will not see the impact of free education, because there is going to be corruption in the free education. There's going to be lawlessness in the free education, in the free quality education. There's going to be corruption in the free quality education. And so the only thing that will make him succeed, that we enjoy his legacy, is for him to go back to the drawing board, to say, let me do a rethink and address the issue of lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption. And this is all emanating, even when you look at the Auditor General's report. Let's take, for instance, the Auditor General report. Nobody is suggesting, not even me, we say the president is corrupt. Because the president cannot even pay for his own medicals. There is somebody in the office of the president that is charged with that responsibility. Why, for God's sake, the president is reluctant enough to take action on that person that caused that disgrace in his office? But yet, what we have witnessed is for the Auditor General and her deputy to be dismissed from office.
Were you in utter shock?
Unfair.
Were you in utter shock, taking into account the decision and then with regards to the matter you've just raised?
Of course, I am shocked that they attack the messenger, forgetting to address the issue, the message. I was shocked because the office of the Auditor General, by their own nomenclature, by their own job, that institution, they are human rights defenders. They are defending the country's state resources as how those that are in governance, how do they manage physical discipline.
This report talks about unethical business practices. How pervasive is that in Sierra Leone? Also, you mentioned corruption.
Oh, well, we need, that's why I said the president needs to do a rethink. And there are a lot of things. We have raised issues number of times. Today, what we have witnessed a few days ago on, how do you call it? Was it a forged divorce paper? Huh? A forged divorce.
Sure.
The gentleman is still in his office. Sure. The president is fully aware. He has not done anything. Some of those things, whether you have to set that gentleman aside so that you maintain discipline in your office. You cannot be the minister where these gentlemen are, but because you entrust that office to somebody else. So when you have some of this type of things happening to your own appointees, the moment you fail to take action, it tells us that the office of the president himself is condoning lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption. That is the message the president is sending to the people of this country. He needs to do a rethink.
We'll soon join a man from Amnesty International, whom I suppose will soon join us on our Zoom. But before we go to that, Victor Lansana, Alphonsus touches on three key aspects, which were firm promises that were made by President Bill. And I suppose during his first term, it was like the catch for many people, because indiscipline at that time seemed extremely pervasive in the country. People were doing just what they like and what have you. How far have we gone in terms of addressing the aspect of, forget about corruption, but say indiscipline and lawlessness in the country?
You know, we find ourselves in a situation where, like I said initially, where the citizens and the state authorities, they kind of have connived against the state, against the interests of the state. And that has actually accumulated into what we are seeing. The issue of indiscipline and lawlessness is a long-term issue. It's a long-term challenge for development of our country. For a very long time, we have been battling with this. So here is this. When I was a teacher, I would have calls from a parent when the child may have failed to say, oh, please assist my child. Quote unquote, mobility come out, mobility be big, interest the broad. So let the child just be promoted just because of that. And people have acculturated it. It has now become like a way of life. Mm-hmm. So whether it's at the pinnacle of society or to the least sector of society, the downtrodden, it has become like a culture or a way of life. And it's something that all of us must actually make conscious efforts in making sure that we are able to minimize it, if not, entirely eradicate it. Because like I said, it has actually eaten into the fabrics of our society. And so, over the years, I've witnessed how this government, led by the president, has taken some strides. For instance, making sure that people who serve in his government, when they misbehave, he sacks them. We all know, there are a number of instances where he has relieved of duty certain individuals who may have been, allegedly involved in some act of indiscipline and lawlessness. Quite recently, in fact, I think they were having their elections, SLP elections. There were, I think, about three high-ranking personnel or officials of the government that were sacked based on indiscipline. To say, you are going to disrupt elections because you wanted your candidates to win so that at the end of the day, when there is the national elections at your party level, you'll be able to have those delegates to vote for you. So he had to set them aside. We all know, that happened. And even before that, he has been doing all of these things. But like I said, we have to make conscious efforts. And one thing about indiscipline, what makes it actually thrive is impunity. So if I do something and there is no consequence, just like a child at home. If your child takes his books and then misuse them, throw them away, or sell them off, and then there is nothing that will happen after that, or if a child disrespects elders and then you joke about that, there is nothing that comes out of it, the child feels motivated to do more wrong, you see. So we as a state, this is unfortunately this our situation. This is our state of affairs in terms of this indiscipline. But we have to make sure, every individual, has to make sure that we consciously, try to fight this menace.
Victor, we've had several instances wherein people in country have made statements that some will consider reckless and others will consider uncalled for. And we have statements that people have made that they'll say doesn't amount to the kind of attention it will give in. Take, for instance, there was one who said it takes just $3 million to get this country in a state of unrest. It was called, questioned just within an hour, and it was released. And we saw him perverting, social media afterwards. Many do consider a statement, statements to that of the young lady, our aunt. No one is saying what she did was right. But many consider it too. It seems there is an aspect of selective justice in country. How well does that touch on human rights entirely?
Well,
and the respect for the rule of law.
Well, it's really, it surrounds or it centers around indiscipline and lawlessness that we have been discussing. I followed that incident when the young man said, I watched the video. He was like, being excited by people around him. So, in 2028, I should be the leader of SLPP. Otherwise, it takes me just $3 million to be able to destabilize governance in this country. That is, reckless statement to the maximum. And when I just said it, when we all clamor for the right to freedom of expression, somebody will say, oh, the man was just merely expressing his views or making use of his rights to freedom of expression. But then I said, we have a limitation. If you make a statement that will destabilize the peace and security of the nation, then that is no freedom of expression. It is a reckless statement. And a reckless statement does not constitute freedom of expression. So such a man, of course, I also follow that he was called to order, he was arrested, and he was detained for some time, and then there was an apology from him through a video or so, and then I think he was released. So clearly, the way people would have wanted, to maybe charge him to court, prosecute him, was not done.
In place by the president, among other senior government officials from both ends, just so that the country maintains peace at that moment, because we were just coming from elections.
Yes, exactly.
From elections.
Exactly. I would not say it was youthful exuberance. Well, maybe it was, but clearly it was reckless to have made such a statement. But then the majority of Sierra Leoneans that I have followed, when they have made statements around this or expressed their views, is that this man should have been prosecuted because he made a statement. Although no one took heed to his statement, nobody came out to, it was futuristic. So that is again another issue about incitement. Does his statement actually have any consequence? Did people actually act on his statements to bring mayhem or to do what he wanted to do? So it was futuristic. So you will understand that aspect. When people were calling that he should have been prosecuted, it would have been difficult to see how that would actually amount to incitement. But for me, it is clearly a reckless statement. And then you just oppose it with Michelle and Lady Abahunt. You yourself, you've said it, that what she said, is really, it doesn't define womanhood. It doesn't, for want of a better expression. No woman should say that to another woman. No woman or no individual should say that to a president. That was the height of the Gate statement. And so when we saw that she was prosecuted and that other guy was not prosecuted, then of course, like I said, for that other guy, it was about whether his statement, anybody acted on it. But this one, it was an individual who directly, abused the president and the first lady. And then I heard later on, the first lady came out to say, oh, I didn't even know that she was arrested. It was not me that gave those instructions. And therefore, as a woman or as a mother myself, I am appealing that she be put on bail.
And the next day she was granted bail.
And she was granted bail. I also follow the AG who said that there are several matters that he inherited that he was considering to discontinue in court on the issue, on the powers of noli prosequi, because he has the powers to do so, as to discontinue matters before the court. So basically, in totality, we are calling for a responsible citizenry. We are calling for state actors to be much more alive, to be much more responsible also in terms of what they do, to make sure that they respect, they fulfill, and they promote human rights. They protect human rights. Because these are international obligations under international law that every state must be able to prioritize. And we will continue these discussions if we decide not to change. So we have to be able to see how we could actually minimize lawlessness and because lawlessness sits, at the heart of every discussion, and we must be able to address them head on.
Alphonsus, I suppose you want to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on this issue of gathering Kaikai. I have a point that will take a different version from what Commissioner have just said. Even if the issue is futuristic, you cannot tell the consequences because people do not go to you. I personally, I was affected because I was among those people who went to Fode Sanko on May 8th. By my own side, somebody was shot dead. By my side at that time. I was lucky because I did not suffer the consequences of that fateful day. So if somebody could come and talk about that, it reminds me of that particular day, what my parents have suffered, those people that their arms were chopped off, reminding them of the impact of the war. I think that was very consequential. It's unfortunate that the government, that's why I said the lawlessness and indiscipline is being aided and abated by politicians. If that statement was coming from an opposition member, believe you me, my brother, as I'm seated here, that person should still be behind the bars. To be candid enough, that's the fact. And we have to own up, we have to accept the truth, then we move forward. As of now, as long as you are within the ruling party, you are a system man, you can do something and go scot-free. That's the essence of the lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption that Madabio said he's going to fight. And we want him to do that before he leaves office.
We've seen several press releases of recent, which point at inviting the former flag bearer aspirants of the APC party who lost in the elections as a result of audios for which they say told people he's the president of Sierra Leone, he won the election, among other things. We've seen on several occasions a lot of
yeah, they call him president-elect. That is really wrong, but we cannot have two presidents at the same time.
A lot of things. But nonetheless, quickly, Gbanie is on Zoom. Solomon Gbanie, good morning. It's a pleasure having you on the program. Good morning, Solomon.
Yeah, good morning, Simon. Good morning, viewers.
I suppose you've been following the program. Is that so?
Sorry, say again?
I suppose you've been following the conversation in the studios this morning.
Yeah, definitely. I've been following.
Amnesty did issue out a a report that touches on human rights, not just in Sierra Leone, but on a global scale. We are looking at ways to localize the conversation to fit our own, situation in Sierra Leone. What informed the outcome of this report, particularly so in the areas that were catalogued for Sierra Leone?
Well, thank you very much, Samuel. The essence of the launching of the report is a traditional practice in Amnesty International, because every year we do a research, we produce a report. In fact, it's not only about Sierra Leone. We have Amnesty's presence in more than 130 countries. And so every year we do a research, we produce a report, and we launch that report. It's usually launched by the Secretary General of Amnesty International. We did a report in Freetown, and Mr. Gbanie was the chairman of that launch, and Commissioner Raja was the guest speaker or the keynote address speaker, and the thing went well. But again, as we normally say, we are an advocacy institution. The reports, we catalog normally the human rights issues in the country. It's for all of us. It's not only about Amnesty International and our membership and partners, but for every Sierra Leonean to see how do we look at that report, the issues raised, and how can government, together with the people, address those issues. Because for us, the enjoyment of human rights, it's not a privilege, or even if it's a privilege, but it's something which government should give us. It's not something which government will look at, say, no, let's give one right and forget about the other. No. Rights should be enjoyed progressively, as the chairman of the commission said, or deputy chair. Again, we must see how do we ensure that we enjoy those rights in a responsible manner as well. Again, we look at some of those laws that have been passed, either reviewed or passed. Whilst we appreciate it, yes, but we still see gaps within some of those laws. Like the Criminal Procedure Act of 2024, which replaces the Criminal Procedure Act of 1965. Fine, it's a very good law, passed, but when you look at the issue of the removal of the jury practice, it's a serious threat to human rights, even the rule of law, in the sense that before now, the trial was by judge and jury, which is like checkmating somehow the issue of where the judge may want to use some other means to hand over judgment. You have the jury that is going to come in and say what is exactly the way the law is and what really happened. But now that they have removed that practice, now we are left at the mercy of judges. And mark you, the judge is an individual who may either go right or go wrong. And we look at some of the issues that there are times some of these judges, they are put under duress, either by some political authority or somebody in power. And so there is every likelihood to be miscarriage of justice, and this we have seen so many times. So whilst we appreciate the review of some of these laws, at least we are happy that they are being reviewed, but again, we still see gaps, like even the issue of the recent act, the Anti-Terrorism Act, the way they define a terrorist is open-ended, which can be used, by state authorities to clamp down on anybody whom they think they may not want to see his or her face, or whom they think is critical of the government. So let me sum up to say that the report is a wake-up call. We are raising this issue on a yearly basis for government to know that whilst we enjoy our rights, we still need to enjoy more of those rights.
So Gbanie, this report also touches on the treason charges on former President Anesbai Koroma. Help us connect the dots as to how well it fits in human rights violation.
Well, we mentioned it because to me, that's a very serious issue for a former president to be to be indicted on an alleged involvement in a coup d'etat or a coup, in a failed coup. I mean, that's a serious issue. So we're ready to see how does justice prevail in the event of having such a high level person, a former president, getting involved in such a crisis. But we have seen how the situation is panning out in that, I mean, he left the country on the issue of not being well, or he's been sick. And so we are studying, we are monitoring the situation to see what is really going to be the end of it. Because what we are raising is the fact that it does not matter your position, but if there's an issue for you to come to the court to answer, then we should allow justice to prevail, and that he should be allowed to come to court to have his day in the court. But now that we understand he's in Nigeria, but what is a bit disturbing is the fact that he went for three months, but I mean he has exceeded the 3 months, and according to what we understand from the judicial system through his own lawyers, that he still continues to seek medical attention in Nigeria. But what we are pushing for is the fact that it does not matter your position in society, as long as you have an issue of an alleged crime, then you should be present in court to have your day in court.
At some point in time, I did ask the gentleman in the studio, I did ask about the aspect of the rule of law. Do you see same as a mockery in Sierra Leone?
Well, it's on the balance, because we have seen some level of improvement within the judiciary and how they are ensuring that we have access to justice, that justice is brought to the doorsteps of people. We have these mobile or circuit courts, we have judges now rotating or moving around. That's fine. And we even have some landmark judgments, which to me is unprecedented. Like the case of the land case, is it Black Johnson case between two people at Black Johnson and the Ministry of Lands, and how judgment was handed down. To us, that's unprecedented. So whilst we are making some efforts, or there are some efforts within the justice system in terms of rule of law, we see rule of law, but we still see that there are still challenges in terms of how the rule of law is being done. Let's look at even the role of the police and how they still do what we call arbitrary arrest and detention. We see how the issue of freedom of expression and how the courts come into that. So it's on the balance. While we are making progress, but we still see challenges in terms of the rule of law and how citizens are really accessing justice.
There has been a lot of talks around the aspects of female genital mutilation, and also the safe abortion bill, or better put, the safe motherhood bill. What is Amnesty's position on same?
It is the same. I mean, we are part of power that is the advocacy coalition that is really pushing for the safe motherhood bill. So Amnesty is leading that coalition together with CAN. So we are part of that discussion. We know what it means. What is a bit disturbing is the fact that people mixed up emotions and the engagement of rights. And it's unfortunate. With due respect to the religious people. In fact, what is very, very disturbing is the fact that they have been part of this journey in terms of the advocacy, in terms of development of the bill. They have been part of it in every step. The Interreligious Council have been part of that process. But it's unfortunate that we still see the way they are bringing the argument. I mean, I don't really see the need for that. We are looking at the right of a woman. And the safe motherhood bill did not give an open check to women or girls to just be committing abortion. There are specific cases mentioned in the bill. So I mean, I don't know why we are still clamoring over that. And Mark, we are talking about the life of women and girls. And when you look at the issue of maternal mortality in the country, one of the key indicators, one of the causative factors of why we have a high rate of maternal mortality is because of unsafe abortion practices. In fact, most of these cases, like what the ministry reports, is just cases that are reported at the facilities. But a lot of those cases are unreported, especially those that die not going to the facility. You know, for FGM, we have made it very, very clear. It's a violation. And what is really disturbing is the fact that when you look at the Maputo Protocol, Sierra Leone is one of the few countries in Africa that did not only pass the thing, they even ratified it in our parliament in 2015, which to us is good. And when you look at the provisions of the Maputo Protocol, it makes it very, very clear that FGM is a human rights issue. And so government should ensure that they get that out. But yet we still see that the government is playing politics around. Because currently, even the review of the Child Rights Act of 2009, that's the gray area now. That is where we are finding it very, very difficult, you know, for some sections within the parliament to agree that the issue of FGM is a human rights issue, and so we should try to solve it. So we even mentioned how last year how 3 girls with different ages died, you know, when they underwent the practice in Gambia. The question is, what has government done to ensure that we get rid of this? We know it's an old age practice. It's something that they said is a cultural practice, but we always draw the line between cultural practices that promote human rights and those that hinder the enjoyment of those rights. And government should know that, notwithstanding the fact that it's a cultural practice, as long as it hinders the enjoyment of rights, then it becomes a concern.
The silent police has come under the microscope on several occasions, and it ranges from issues that has to do with indiscipline, recklessness, bribery, and corruption, among other things. What does this report say? More so in terms of accountable and ethical policing. What does the report say about same?
We have said times without number. But again, the police is getting a bit professional, you know, with time. You know, it's a bit progressive. But when we look at the way the police has been behaving before now, you know, this issue of regime policing, wherein the police is accountable more to the powers that be and not the citizens, you know, in terms of democratic policing. But again, we still have some issues with the police, you know, in terms of arbitrary arrest and detention, as the report mentioned, in which a journalist was doing his lawful work, you know, in terms of investigation and taking pictures in Kenema, wherein he was assaulted by a police officer or some police officers in Kenema. Although with the intervention of SLAG, the matter was addressed. But this is a concern because to us human rights defenders, you know, any issue bordering on one human rights defender is a concern for all of us. But by and large, at least we are seeing some semblance of professionalism within the police, because I think recently they went to Ghana to understudy the police service in Ghana. Because mark you, Ghana has what we call the Ghanaian police service. I'm in Ghana now as I talk to you. It has the Ghanaian police service. And in fact, moving around, I hardly see a policeman, you know, around. You know, I've been moving around the capital, Accra. Unlike in Freetown, you have policemen all over the place. You know, no, we don't have that here. I've not seen much of that here. You know, the Ghana has what we call the Ghanaian police service, and the leadership of the police came to Ghana to understudy the Ghanaian model, and how can they go back and do something towards that. You know, because we have the Sierra Leone police force, we have a force and not a service. Again, we are happy that they have launched their strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, and which Amnesty was invited. So these are all concrete steps taken by the police to ensure that they become more professional, and the issue of respect for human rights become key factor in terms of their performance and the way they operate.
We've had a couple of messages on our Facebook page. We'll just go through a few and allow the guest in the studio, of course, and Solomon, who is joining us from Ghana, to lend his view on same. First off is from Mystic Dwazaku, says the issue of loitering is simple. Just that military and police personnel who parade at night often take advantage of Sierra Leoneans moving around to make money, all in the name of loitering. It also says the Human Rights Commissioner has been frank in his media engagements on human rights issues in Sierra Leone. Just that our human rights are still fragile. Your institution needs to engage others for proper institutional collaboration. Abdul Tijan Kabu says, going back to the drawing board when he barely has a year left in his tenure, because 2026-27 will be political year campaign. Tijan also says, how can someone be talking about discipline when he's not? Corruption is at its highest peak. Is that discipline? Musdi says the implementation has been the problem because of the enormous corruption within the fabrics of our society, from the respective governments, past and present, institutions, be it government or private, to the public as a whole. Until we have a real leader who is willing and ready to put their hearts and minds into redirecting the country to a more honest society, corruption can never be totally eliminated, and this is true world over. However, when it becomes the norm, then there comes the problem, as we have seen in Sierra Leone for decades and still counting. It also says Sierra Leone is the tale of two cities. One is the good intentions of the law of the land, including the Supreme Book, that is the Constitution. On the other hand, the bad intention of almost everyone else, starting from the very top of the society to the jack and Jill in the streets. When lawmakers become the chronic law breakers, the authority of the very law totally diminishes. In the absence of control, chaos reigns. I think those are the messages to take for now. We'll allow you to respond, and afterwards we see you to wrap up the segment. I'll start off with you, Victor.
Of participating in governance, people sharing their views on issues. I particularly love the last message, although the person did not announce his name. But of course, yes, I agree. I mean, this is what I've been saying. When you have the governors and the governed, conniving against the state, this is what you get. This is the situation where we are right now. When you left off, brought in our brother, Mr. Gbanie, I wanted to make a comment on the invite or the invitation sent out by the police to Dr. Samuel Kamara. Mm-hmm. While I would state that Dr. Samuel Kamara has to be very much measured in his public outings and statements, but I also say that the police should be able to prioritize, their work. I mean, why do you have to put a man on this, Dr. Samuel on the spotlight, when even his own political party, seem to have actually, put him aside? He has been set aside by his own political party. Why do you want to go and, make relevance out of such a man? Just to, get us back to where we are coming from. We all know, we are coming from the situation after elections. There was this high tension around Samuel Kamara was making statements. You invited him on several occasions. Now, I see that the dust really have settled. Why not really put your energy on other emerging security issues, other than, still bringing in Samuel Kamara? Let him say he's the president. Who cares? Who cares? Is he actually the president? He's not. There's only one president that the country recognizes. So, if he goes out there and say he wants to address the state, or wants to address the people of Sierra Leone, as he normally does, and he says, oh, I am the president-elect, or I will be given power, it's just for his gullible population, his gullible supporters who believe such a thing. So don't make him relevant when actually his own political party, are setting him aside. So the police have to understand that they should not be the ones, going after public attention or things that will actually bring the country or the governance of the country into a kind of a standstill. Because the moment you begin to invite a man like that, then it now even becomes like a witch hunt. It now becomes like the security of the state is really not assured, or this man wants to threaten the security of the state. So really, they have to prioritize their work. Over and above all of that, I think the duty bearers, our state officials, they have to understand that they have a duty. And people have to understand again that power is really, it's not constant. It comes and goes. I'm today commissioner, tomorrow I'll be an ordinary person. Yeah. So what the things we do today, I believe, should be able to protect us tomorrow. The laws we pass today should be able to protect us. And you don't make laws, that is what I normally say. You don't make laws to actually suit your convenience or your comfort because you are in that office. Shaka Stevens, for instance, ruled for 27 years, for 17 years. It was never forever. So you will come back to a state where you are an ordinary man, and you would want those institutions to assist you, to protect you. You want those laws to protect you. But if you had not actually empowered those institutions, you had not passed laws that are adequate or strong enough to be able to protect you, as an ordinary man, as an ordinary citizen, you will never get it. Mm-hmm. So I would always advise that we must be really conscious and we must be circumspect about power, which is really, ephemeral. It comes and goes. And we must be responsible enough. The power that has been given to us, the opportunity that has been given to us to serve, we use it, in a positive light. And to citizens generally would say that yes, government bears, like in the walls of the Special Courts of Sierra Leone, the bulk of the responsibility. Government actually bears the biggest responsibility, making sure that it fixes the country. But also, citizens have to understand that they themselves, there's no country in this world that has progressed without the willingness of the citizens. So if we continue to cut corners, if we continue to be indisciplined, if we continue to steal electricity or water, how do we really want the country to develop? Okay. We cannot. By the way, these people who are serving in offices, in public offices, they are no aliens or foreigners or they are coming from some other part of the planet or another planet. No. They are products of society. They are products of society. So what you do today when you have an opportunity, maybe the only reason why you are criticizing, it is because you don't have opportunity at the moment to be in that position that you are criticizing. Once you are there, you do things even, worse off than those who are there today. So it's unfortunate. So let us actually, let us have the thinking that we have an obligation to make sure that we develop this country for everybody and for our unborn children. That is a piece of advice that Sierra Leoneans really have to look up to.
Okay, Alphonsus.
Yeah, Commissioner have said something, I will not repeat it again, but let me just give my final word and link it to one of the messages. Commissioner make reference to section 13 about people's responsibility. How do we also support the state? But I just want to move, because when you talk about the Constitution, people will see something like a sacred document. But let's just narrow it down to the National Pledge. Just the National Pledge. It tells you what you, as an individual or an institution, you do for your state, for this country. And if we all follow that National Pledge to the letter, Sierra Leone is a paradise. Having said that, President Bio, me personally supported him because he's a military. He knows the impact of war, and he has tasted the war. He has served as a former head of state, as a military. He has come back as a civilian president. He should be the best person to understand the dynamics of this country. So when he came with the 3 key words that he's going to fight lawlessness, indiscipline, and corruption, I went with him, and I'm still with him. I am calling on him to ensure that before he leaves office, let us see some semblance of these 3 key words that he has laid some legacy.
Is there time to work on same?
He still has some time. And my last key word to him, Commissioner made mention of it. My last key word to him, let him don't sign the Counter-Terrorism Act. The definition of terrorism is so vague and open. Tomorrow, he will lose power. Tomorrow, SLPP will not be in power. Another party will be in power. They will use that same information against them as we are now enjoying and suffering the Public Order Act of 1965 enacted by late Albert Magai of the SLPP.
Which the APC implemented.
Which APC implemented and SLPP are crying. So let them think twice that they will not continue to be in power, but let the laws they put protect them tomorrow.
Thank you so very much, Alphonsus Gbanie and Victor Lansana. Thank you so very much. Time is in our favor. Okay. The other guest is already here. And also Solomon Sobandi. It's been a pleasure talking to you from Accra this morning.